The White House believes that Russian dictator Vladimir Putin may violate the commitments he has made. According to NBC News, citing sources, this is evidenced by recent statements from Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. His recent remarks have caused significant dissatisfaction within the administration of the United States President Donald Trump, as they clearly indicate that Russia may renege on the crucial commitments it previously made to the United States. A source for the publication noted that the Russians are stalling day after day.
It truly gives the distinct impression that this is merely just a simple game, which would undoubtedly irritate any sitting president, but especially someone as prominent and influential as President Donald Trump.
It is noted that the main question is whether a diplomatic solution exists now, or if it will take another 6 months, a year, or even a year and a half to reach a peace agreement now. Earlier, the foreign minister of the aggressor country, Sergei Lavrov, stated that a meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy is not planned, as there is no appropriate agenda for it. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy announced that the groundwork for security guarantees for Ukraine will be ready in the coming days. According to him, teams from Ukraine, the United States, and European countries are working on the framework for these guarantees. Zelenskyy noted that Russia is showing no signs of seeking peace and continues to shell Ukrainian cities. In the president's opinion, pressure is needed to change the aggressor country's position, as well as a meeting at the highest level to discuss all issues. The Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has complained about the losses suffered by the Russian occupation army. During a meeting with employees of the nuclear industry, the president of the aggressor country stated that the conditions and methods of conducting armed conflict change every month. According to him, if you fall behind even by a few weeks, losses increase sharply, or the pace of advancement along the line of combat engagement drops. Putin noted that the Ukrainian army can implement relevant technological solutions within a few weeks, and as a result, the effectiveness of the Russian army's use of modern weaponry drops sharply. It should be noted, according to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, enemy losses have amounted to more than 1,075,000 occupiers. Ukrainian forces are carrying out successful operations. In particular, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated that in August of this year, the armed forces of Ukraine liberated 6 out of 18 occupied settlements in the Sumy region. As noted by the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleksandr Syrsky, soldiers of the 225th Separate Assault Regiment and the 95th Air Assault Brigade are striking the occupiers and liberating Ukrainian territory in the Sumy region. According to him, the enemy is throwing fresh cannon fodder into battle and suffering significant losses. In addition, the armed forces of Ukraine are successfully eliminating occupiers in the Donetsk region. Despite the advance of Russian occupiers in the Pokrovsk direction of the front, the defense forces destroyed sabotage and reconnaissance groups and took prisoners. The armed forces of Ukraine are inflicting damage on enemy troops, including in temporarily occupied Crimea. On August 21st, drones struck a military unit of the Russian Black Sea Fleet in Sevastopol. Keith Kellogg, the U.S. President Donald Trump's special representative for Ukraine, will visit Kyiv for the country's Independence Day. According to Suspilne citing sources, the visit will take place between August 24 and 25. His agenda includes a meeting with the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelenskyy, as well as participation in a prayer breakfast. In addition, Trump's personal spiritual advisor, Pastor Evangelist Mark Burns, will also come to Kyiv. On X, he announced that he is traveling from South Korea to Ukraine. As stated by the first deputy head of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, Serhiy Kislitsia, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is ready to discuss the issue of territories along the current front line, but only during a bilateral meeting with Putin. According to him, regarding the territorial issue, the president is guided by current legislation and public opinion, and society is categorically opposed to exchanging Ukrainian land for peace. The head of state himself, during events dedicated to Ukraine's State Flag Day, stated that he would not give Ukrainian land to the occupiers. Meanwhile, as reported by The Times, Western allies, together with the Trump administration, are developing a plan to ensure Ukraine's security. In particular, military leaders are considering 4 options for security guarantees. Among the possible scenarios is the training of troops in Ukraine by European allies. This mission will be accompanied by arms deliveries. The coalition also intends to patrol Ukraine's skies using fighter jets, as well as to ensure the security of shipping in the Black Sea. The second option involves air defense. With limited guarantees from the United States, Europe will primarily focus on aerial patrols and drone reconnaissance missions. The third is the extension of NATO's Article 5 to Ukraine. Another scenario envisions a bilateral mutual defense treaty with the United States. This format is already in place in America's relations with Japan and South Korea.
On August 24th, Ukraine celebrates Independence Day. Exactly 34 years ago, the Supreme Soviet of the Ukrainian SSR adopted the Act of Declaration of Independence of Ukraine, creating a sovereign state. World leaders and representatives from many countries came to Ukraine to congratulate it on the holiday.
Today, Reason is with us here.
Today with us here are Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Special Representative of Trump General Keith Kellogg, the Defense Ministers of Sweden, Denmark, Romania, Lithuania, Latvia, Canada, and the British Minister for Veterans Affairs.
The American people, President Donald Trump and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, congratulated Ukraine on Independence Day, expressing hope for future sovereignty. Trump emphasized the need to end the war through negotiations, while Rubio expressed hope for continued partnership in the fields of economy and security. President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, in her congratulatory message, emphasized the EU will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. Ukraine was also congratulated on Independence Day by UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and Finnish President Alexander Stubb.
We will continue to steadfastly support Ukraine for as long as it truly takes. I sincerely wish Ukraine a peaceful, prosperous, and enduring future. Glory to Ukraine!
Lithuania's president and Moldova's foreign minister also congratulated Ukraine on Independence Day in Ukrainian. Turkish President Erdogan noted in his message that comprehensive cooperation between Ankara and Kyiv grows stronger every year. Ukraine was also congratulated by the kings of the United Kingdom and the Netherlands. In his address, the Pope prayed for Ukrainians affected by the war and for peace on Ukrainian soil. A congratulatory message from Chinese President Xi Jinping was published by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. In it, the Chinese leader noted that Ukraine and China have traditionally friendly relations, which have been steadily developing in recent times. The self-proclaimed president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, from whose territory Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February 2022, issued a cynical congratulatory message to Ukraine on Independence Day. In his message, Lukashenko stated that it is the destiny of the Belarusian and Ukrainian peoples to live side by side in peace and harmony. In addition, Lukashenko cynically wished Ukraine peaceful skies, solidarity, and truly independent development. Sweden has delivered ASC-890 airborne early warning and control aircraft to Ukraine. The radars on these Swedish aircraft can cover approximately 500,000 square meters horizontally and have a surveillance range of over 18,000 meters in altitude. Over the sea surface, the system can detect and track fighter jets, helicopters hovering in the air, cruise missiles, and even maritime targets as small as a jet ski. Meanwhile, the defense ministers of Ukraine and Sweden have agreed on the joint production of defense products in both countries. The administration of US President Donald Trump, in turn, has approved the sale to Ukraine of 3,350 extended-range attack munition-guided air-launched missiles, which are expected to be delivered to the front within the next few weeks. According to the Wall Street Journal, citing sources, the use of these missiles, which have a range of between 240 and 450 kilometers, will require approval from the Pentagon. The Prime Minister of Canada stated that his country will provide Ukraine with $1 billion worth of weapons. The package will include the transfer of drones, ammunition, and armored vehicles.
At the significant G7 summit held in June, Canada officially pledged an additional $2 billion in crucial military aid to support ongoing efforts. Today, I am incredibly proud to formally announce that more than $1 billion of this substantial amount will be specifically allocated to significantly strengthening your vital arsenal by supplying essential drones, crucial ammunition, and robust armored vehicles, all of which will arrive as early as next month.
The Canadian Prime Minister also announced that the countries will provide tens of millions for emergency aid, the construction of bomb shelters, as well as for countering cyber attacks.
As a co-chair of the International Coalition for the Return of Ukrainian Children, Canada will significantly strengthen its cooperation with Ukraine, its European partners, and the United States to ensure the immediate and unconditional return of all these children.
In addition, it has become known that Norway and Germany will pay for 2 Patriot systems with missiles for Ukraine.
China has announced its readiness to send troops to Ukraine as part of a peacekeeping mission. European diplomats have reported this to the Welt am Sonntag channel, citing reliable sources within the Chinese government. It is specifically noted that Beijing will indeed take such a step if the peacekeeping forces are deployed on the basis of a formal United Nations mandate. At the same time, China's initiative has elicited a mixed reaction among European diplomats. It is noted that Beijing's participation in the peacekeeping mission could accelerate the deployment of international forces to monitor the peace process. At the same time, some EU officials fear that China may want to spy in Ukraine and, in the event of a conflict, take a pro-Russian stance. As is known, China maintains neutrality regarding the full-scale war waged by the aggressor country Russia against Ukraine and continues to foster friendly relations with Moscow. On August 31st of this year, the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin is planning to visit China. This was previously stated by Yuri Ushakov, the Kremlin ruler's aide on international affairs. The Russian and Chinese leaders will meet in China during the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit and will also hold bilateral talks. It is worth noting that European officials are discussing a plan to send British and French troops to Ukraine as part of a peace agreement. At the same time, about 10 European countries have declared their readiness to send their troops to Ukraine. In particular, Denmark, Finland, Estonia, and Lithuania are considering sending troops.
Turkey may send its military to Ukraine in the event of a peace agreement being signed in order to prevent a recurrence of Russian aggression. This was stated by Ukraine's ambassador to Turkey, Nariman Celyal, during a television marathon.
The Turkish side.
Turkey is one of more than 10 countries that are already carefully considering the potential possibility of sending their military forces to Ukraine as a crucial and stabilizing factor to provide essential guarantees against the potential recurrence of Russian aggression in the unfortunate event of a peace agreement. Celyal also noted that Turkey is fully ready to join in the vital efforts of demining the Black Sea and all Ukrainian territories. The official also noted that Turkey still remains one of the best venues for future negotiations at the level of delegations and leaders. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelenskyy stated that teams from Ukraine, the United States, and European nations are currently working on the architecture of security guarantees, and these proposals may be ready in the coming days.
There is now a very real chance to effectively end this war. Ukraine is indeed ready to take constructive steps that could genuinely bring real peace closer. However, regrettably, Russia is not showing any genuine intention for peace and continues to relentlessly shell our cities. Therefore, pressure is urgently needed to change its position, as well as a comprehensive summit to discuss all the critical issues.
On August 20th, Zelenskyy stated that Kyiv had received a positive signal from US President Donald Trump that his country would be a participant in security guarantees for Ukraine, and this paves the way for other countries to join this process as well. The administration of US President Donald Trump officially approved the significant sale to Ukraine of more than 3,000 advanced air-launched extended-range air attack munition missiles. On August 24th, unknown drones attacked Russia once again. Explosions occurred in the port village of Usluga. Due to the effective work of air defense systems, the terminal of the major gas company Novatek caught fire.
I don't know, it's burning. Novatek, will it let us in or not? They haven't let the previous shift out yet, so they definitely won't let us in. So today I'm just chilling.
The export port of Usluga is the largest seaport in Russia on the Baltic, through which oil, gas, coal, fertilizers, and grain are exported. It receives the largest ships and allows bypassing the Baltic ports, playing a strategic role in trade and logistics. Meanwhile, things were also tense in Syzran, Russia. Eyewitnesses reported hearing more than 20 explosions in the city. It was also reported that the Syzran oil refinery was under attack, which is one of the key enterprises of the Russian Federation in the war against Ukraine. It was also loud in Moscow and St. Petersburg. The airline Rossiya was forced to adjust its flight schedule due to restrictions on the arrival and departure of aircraft at airports in central Russia and St. Petersburg. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian armed forces established control over the village of zelenskyy in the Donetsk region. Ukrainian defenders also pushed back Russian occupiers near the village of Andriivka in the Sumy region. This was reported by the Deep State Project. Earlier, Russian troops broke through Ukrainian defenses in the Donetsk region and advanced at least 6 miles deep into the territory. However, the Ukrainian army foiled the enemy's plan, writes the Telegraph. On August 12th, Azov Corps forces launched a counterattack, which the General Staff called active measures.
Within just a few days after the offensive, Russian soldiers found themselves completely surrounded by the Azov Corps, which is one of Ukraine's elite and highly effective units. This significant incursion, one of the deepest since the strategic transition to a war of attrition, quickly turned into a profoundly costly and ultimately deadly failure.
Earlier, analysts from the Institute for the Study of War reported that the defense forces had made gains in the Pokrovsk direction. Ukrainian fighters likely cleared several settlements near Dobropilya and drove the Russians out of the areas of Veselov and Kurskove. The liberation of Rubizhne, Novovodyane, Petrovka, and Zoloty Kolodys has also been confirmed. Subsequently, Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrskyi confirmed that 6 settlements in the Pokrovsk direction have been cleared of Russian occupiers.